We've discussed transitioning and insuring the VLJ, the new generation aircraft, specifically with the Phenom 100. Are you experiencing any difference in the reception from the underwriters than you are with any other of the new generation aircraft?
The aircraft has a great background because of the manufacturer. They've got a long history in aircraft manufacturing and accepted aircraft in the industry. Even though it's a new model, a new aircraft, it's not a new company. They know how to make an airplane, and underwriters are aware of that. They have that expectation of a quality product. And so far, talking to underwriters and dealing with them, it's not an issue of the airplane as being a problem. The airplane is readily accepted. It is, again, going back to that VLJ market and setting up a transition pilot and going through the steps to make sure they're properly qualified.
We have heard that there is some underwriter resistance to a single pilot operation versus a two-man crew. Tell me about that. How easily can you get a single pilot underwritten in the VLJ and specifically the Phenom 100?
It's an experience issue for the pilot and their background. It is not difficult for a pro pilot to get into and transition into the airplane and get single pilot authorization. A transition pilot is going to require some time in the aircraft, experience in the aircraft, something that we can set up a transition program to be accompanied by a pro to transition into the high altitude operations for single pilot operations, being able to adjust to keep up with the altitude and the speeds of the airplane, and they're thinking far enough ahead to do this and in that class of aircraft. But once we overcome that and create the program where they get a certain amount of time in the airplane and then move on to the single pilot, it's generally a time factor and experience after that.
When you talk about a certain amount of time to transition, do you pin it down to so many hours, or tell me how that's handled? That
varies with the person's background, but oftentimes what we can do is work with a professional and someone who has the experience and the reputation of being able to transition someone into the aircraft and give them to observe how they handle the airplane. It's not so much an hour thing. At this point, some of the underwriters rely upon hours to gain experience before they will approve something. But sometimes we can go in and get a certain number of hours as a minimum, but then go back and do some recurrent training and evaluation. Some pilots can transition quicker than others, and because of their background or experience and abilities. And if the ability is there and the evaluations that we set up come through fine, there's no reason they couldn't move into a single pilot operation quicker than another pilot.
We know with the TBM 700 and now the 850 that several groups sprang up and were formed just for the purpose of mentoring, let's say, low time or certainly undertrained people that were trying to transition into the TBM. Has that happened around the Phenom at this point?
It is just in the starting stages, and of course with a new product it's tough to get the experienced pilots just because the airplane is not out there. We can get experienced pilots for turbojet experience and high altitude operations, but time in make and model is a little more difficult. But it is developing. They are coming along, and that's something that we have to continue to work on to match up the buyer, the owner pilot who's inexperienced to the pro pilot. who can set up and advance the program as it comes. It's important for this to get off to a great start. We've seen aircraft in the past that did not control this, and if they don't control that transition, that early transition in training, and you end up with losses in the aircraft, that destroys the aircraft's reputation with the insurance companies, and that hurts everybody. So we find that it's critical to help the aircraft company itself get off on the right start. We've done that with some of the other manufacturers in setting up programs that have been successful in keeping the losses down low, and if we can do that on these transition pilots, then the aircraft does well and becomes more and more accepted in the market by the underwriting community. Makes our transitions and their sales obviously increase because of it's more readily accepted insurable airplane in the market. But it is critical in the beginning stages for a new make and model aircraft to come out to properly create that transition program for the safety of the airplane.